live. You see they're dry. You see there's no marrow in the bone. You see they're scattered all over the valley. They ain't even full skeletons. I mean, the bones are scattered all over the valley. They're just bones. But answer me a question, Ezekiel. Can these bones live? Ezekiel answers the only way he knows how to answer. Lord, you know. Critical race theory was born out of critical legal theory. Am I teaching y'all something today? There emerged two common beliefs linking all critical race theories. First, white supremacy has subordinated black people and other people of color. That's just a fact. How in the world are you going to fight against that being taught in any school? White supremacy has subordinated black people and other people of color. That's a fact. Why don't you want that to be taught in school? You let your schools teach us that Columbus discovered America. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that George Washington couldn't tell a lie. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that some slave owners were beneficent and good slave owners. There were no good slave owners. Anybody who owned people was evil. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that Abraham Lincoln was good for Negroes. No, Abraham Lincoln was trying to save the Union. And Abe Lincoln himself said if he could save the Union and keep black people in chains, he would do it. That's a lie. Come on, somebody. You let them teach us about a white Jesus. You let them teach us that Native Americans were the aggressors. Come on, somebody. That white folk had a manifest destiny and that the pilgrims were good to Native Americans. That's a lie. All day, every day, you let them teach us lies. All throughout my history in school, I was taught lies. But you got a problem with critical race theory because it teaches the truth that white supremacy has subordinated black people and people of color. The right to bear arms. Let me just back up a little bit and let me take you on back to the late 1960s when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California. And they were oppressing black folk, and a group of men and women known as the Black Panther Party decided that they were going to defend the rights of black folk. And the Black Panthers decided that the Second Amendment wasn't just for white folk. So they strapped themselves with guns and showed up at the Capitol in California. And when they saw them Negroes with guns, come on, somebody. That's why I say if you ever really want to get gun laws changed, just strap all these Negroes up. They'll change them laws before the week is over. When the Black Panthers, watch this, I want you to read, the California legislator passed what was called the Mulford Act. It was a gun control act that decided who could get guns, who couldn't get guns, what could be in your background, what couldn't be in your background. It was the first time in history that the National Rifle Association, the NRA, supported restrictive gun legislation, all because black folk had the nerve to get strapped. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, go get strapped. Amen, somebody. Y'all gonna say Bishop told us to get strapped. I said it. Go get strapped. It just got real quiet up in here. But y'all already know I'm a triple P. Amen. Y'all know what a triple P is, right? A pistol packing preacher. Amen, somebody.
right now.
All right, bro.
You've got a responsibility to go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That's the name of the Lord. Somebody got to tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You've got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now. May not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. He got to take away from you so you understand how to depend on El Shaddai. Come on in here.
90.7 WTCC. Good morning. Welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness, create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 3 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m., I want to thank my friend, Mr. Kenneth Barnett, for bringing us up into the 9 o'clock hour with The Promise. You can hear The Promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best in gospel music. Good way to start out your Monday morning. Great way to start out your week. It looks like we're starting out this week on March 13th with a wintry mix. You know, mild winter all winter long, and decides it wants to start snowing in March. That's New England for you. What you gonna do? Good morning. Rep your city, rep your town. I see H-Town in the house, double H-Town in the house. Yes, get strapped. Y'all listening to my intro. Get strapped. Good morning, Whitney, my baby girl. Kiss my grandbabies. Grand Rising. All that good stuff. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know what part of the world you are chiming in from. Good morning to everybody here in the Pioneer Valley, everybody, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, wherever you're coming in from. Everybody across the world through the World Wide Web.
Yes, let me know where you're coming in from. Welcome, Facebook. Welcome, YouTube. Welcome, Instagram. Where else we are? Welcome, Twitter. Welcome, Twitter. Welcome, Twitter. Let everybody know the bishop is on the air. Today, we're going to be talking about the myth of Black progress in America. And I know some of y'all going to be like, wait now, man, that bag of swine. Black people have come a mighty long way. We're going to talk about it. Is that all right? How about we talk about it? Because, y'all just sometimes, yeah, I get it. We're very trusting people, and y'all want to trust what they tell y'all that everything's equal now. It's all equal now. Y'all just making excuses now for your failures. Well, let's deal with it. Let's talk about the myth of Black progress in America. Tell a friend, tell somebody the bishop is on the air. 413-736-2781. 413-736-2781 is the number. If you want to chime in on the conversation, if you're in the Twitter space, put your request in and we'll get you live. All right. Don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. We're coming right back. A little bit of Ferris Hill. I got to give y'all your motivation on Monday morning. Your Monday morning motivation. Don't stop. Can't stop. Yeah. It's the Ferris Hill don't stop version, not the Diddy and Mace version. All right. But whatever you do, just keep moving. Don't stop. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere.
The essence of life is growth, but the essence of growth is change. The being in the road will be the end of the road if you refuse to change. Get a little higher, get a little higher, dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further, go a little further. Come on, come on, come on. Get a little higher, come on, yeah. Dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further, go a little further. Come on, don't stop. The essence of life is growth. The essence of growth is change. The being in the road will be the end of the road if you refuse to change. Your life will never change until you get disgusted with where you are. Whatever you don't hate is what you tolerate. You must learn from the past, plan for the future, and live for today. For it is your daily routine that determines your success or failure in life. It's the choices that you have made up until this point that will determine the rest of your life. So break the cycle that doing enough is simply good enough. You only get out what you put in, so don't settle for the crumbs when you can have a whole loaf. So push yourself beyond your limitations. Come on. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop. Come on. Don't reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. So you gotta break the routine of trying to beat the system. Manipulators will always try to bypass the process for the quick progress. There are no shortcuts to success. There are no elevators to the top. You gotta take it one step at a time. You gotta break the routine of allowing others to get into your head to control who you are and where you're going. You see, when you're about the positive, you're gonna always have haters. But don't let your haters push you down, let your haters push you forward to the next level. So when people show you who they really are, don't perceive them to be something else that they're not. See, a zebra does not change his stripes, so you gotta keep pushing yourself to the next level. Yeah, there you go. Come on. A little deeper. Come on. Yeah. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on. Don't stop. Come on. Yeah. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on. Don't stop. Come on. You gotta understand that greatness is the nature that you were born out of. You'll never discover your greatness without hard work and dedication. Greatness says more about who you are and what you expect for yourself. And greatness will always attract greatness. Show me your friends and I'll show you the future. You're just a step away. You're just a step away. You're just a step away. Don't ever give up. Come on. You're just a step away. You're almost there. Come on. You gotta You see, there's no mountain too high, no valley too low. You can go where you want to go. It's all in the power of your imagination. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. So stretch yourself. Take yourself to the next level. Come on, come on, come on. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Come on, come on, come on. Don't stop, come on. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Blessings are coming your way. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop until you get your dream. Don't stop. Get your dream until you get your dream. Come on. Don't stop until you get your dream. Don't stop. Get your dream. Come on. Yeah. Don't stop. Come on.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from, and hit, but it just made me stronger and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love from me he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. She's looking good. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
90.7 WTCC. Good morning. H-Town is in the house. Good morning, everybody in the field. That's what we call Springfield, Massachusetts. Good morning to everybody who's chiming in the field. Good morning, North Kakalaki in the building. See who else is up in here. Chicago is in the house. Rep your city, rep your town. Good morning, Brother Rivera, Brother Beavers, Brother Grady. Good morning, good morning. I see you. Ricky Johnson in the building. Good morning, Greenville, South Kakalaki. Good morning, Johannesburg, South Africa. Grand Rapids, Michigan is up in here representing. What's up with the rest of y'all, huh? You ain't keeping it real. You ain't representing. Tell me what movie that was from. I asked y'all that the other day. I don't know if y'all ever got it right. You ain't keeping it real. You ain't representing. Represent your city, your town. Jump in, chime in. Tell me where you're chiming in from. Okay? I see you in the 850, Sam Davis. Good morning, good morning, good morning to each and every one of you. H-Town is still in here again. They always H-Town be keeping it real. They be representing. All right. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but they be keeping it. But in the Twitter space, throw it in the comment section. Tell me where you're chiming in from. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Who's keeping it real? Who's representing their hood up in here? Up in here. Is the 413 in the building? I don't see no Connecticut in here. Where's the 860, the 203? Where y'all at? All right. I see New Jersey up in here. Union, New Jersey. New Jersey up in here. Where the 413 at? Where the 860? Where the 203? Come on now. Let's get it. You're right, Francesca. H-Town is always representing. Always. All right, I see you, Keyshawn. I see the 413. Well, y'all can't be quiet, man. Y'all can't be quiet when other people be representing. Y'all ain't keeping it real. I don't know why I'm on that one today. 413-736-2781. If you missed the Lift Every Voice lecture series, you still got one more chance on April 12th. It doesn't bring back what you missed. I mean, the best you can do is go back and watch the video. But this past Thursday was off the chain, okay? I don't know if that's still a saying or if I need to check with my millennial children so I can get updated on my slang. But it was off it, okay? All right. Teslin Figaro came through and wrecked the building. That Aaron St. Louis, that's a talented spoken word artist, talented brother. He came through and wrecked the house with a couple spoken word pieces. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Diane Caldwell came through and danced for us. And of course, as he always does, the Reverend J.P. Morgan Jr. came through and wrecked the house in song. It was a blessed evening. Empowering, inspiring, challenging, covered all of the bases. If you missed it, you missed it. Don't miss the next one, April 12th. Vicki Irvin is coming through, all right? Entrepreneur, actress, just all around personality who's going to come and talk about, is going to challenge us in terms of Black entrepreneurship. And you need to be in the building. You know, if you're a business owner, if you're an aspirant actress, if you want to talk about having a makeup or clothing line, and you want to deal with any of those issues around entrepreneurship, this is the lecture for you on April 12th. All right, you want to be in the building, okay? All right, I covered that. This Wednesday, the Pastors Council Lenten service is happening again at the Mount Zion Baptist Church, 7 p.m. on Wednesday. The Reverend Atu White is the preacher for this Wednesday. So come on out and support the Pastors Council as well. 413-736-2781. Now I wanna take you on a trip back toward the beginning of the pandemic, right? Let's go back to around June 2020. Now, if you remember June 2020, you remember America was erupting in sustained protest over the killing of a Black man, George Floyd, by police in Minneapolis. The most watched movie on Netflix at that time was The Help. And even though The Help had come out almost 10 years before then, came out in 2011, so 9 years before then. But during the George Floyd protests, all of a sudden The Help became the most watched film on Netflix. And The Help depicts Black servants working in affluent white households in the 1960s in Mississippi. And it centers on a white female journalist. Now, the movie won acclaim in some circles, but in other circles, it was criticized as a simplistic portrayal of racism and redemption in the middle of the cruelties of Jim Crow. But the question I had was, why did people start watching The Help almost 10 years later in the midst of George Floyd protests at a moment of deep racial trauma in America? And you know, to ask that question, you can wind up tumbling down a rabbit hole. And somebody will say, well, it had just become available on Netflix. That doesn't explain everything. One reality, though, that The Help phenomenon, what happened then, makes us realize and recognize is the enduring power of mythology when it comes to American racism. That America has this ability to make American racism some mythological phenomenon, to turn it into something softer and lighter than it actually was or is, to get people to believe that Black people really didn't have it as bad as they're trying to say that they did. And this mythology takes on several forms. It involves a desperate grasp for affirmation, nostalgia, and willful ignorance, that are really woven into a larger enduring narrative, the mythology of racial progress in America. And let me submit to you that I'm not oblivious to the gains that have been made through the passing of laws and legislation and court battles and the wins of Voting Rights Act, and which has really been neutered, by the way, in 2013, Civil Rights Acts and all of that kind of stuff. But in spite of all of that, I want to submit to you that Black progress in America is a unique American mythology. All right. Since the founding of this country, there's been this prevailing cultural sensibility to be optimistic and future oriented and convinced that America at its core is inherently good, which is the reason why you get white folks and other non-white folks. You get people like Nikki Haley and others, and even Black folk like Tim Scott and others who talk about, oh, America is the greatest nation to ever exist. It's the fairest nation to ever exist, and they make these mythological claims about America based on this narrative of its inherent goodness, that in spite of the genocide of indigenous people, that in spite of the enslavement, rape, murder, brutalization, and dehumanization of Black people, that in spite of the way it has treated women, despite the way it has colonized other parts of the world, despite the fact that it dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, did preemptive strikes against Iraq, despite all of the blood that is on the hands of America, there's this narrative that it's still inherently good. It's still fighting for democracy across the world. And people buy into that. Even the people that have been victimized by the white supremacist structure in America often buy into this notion that America has inherent goodness. Despite our tragic racial history, Americans generally believe the country has made and continues to make this steady progress toward racial equality. And there's a broad acceptance of this trajectory. You can hear it in the way politicians, preachers, and others in leadership talk about America. And here's the problem: it influences the way racism is treated in our culture. Because if you can convince the people that America is inherently good and America is on this steady climb toward racial equality, then it will treat systemic racism like it doesn't really exist, or like it's not all that bad. So when we think about the nation's racial history, people envision this linear path that begins with this shameful period, but it moves without error in a single direction toward equality. Like we're on that path right now. You know, like we're riding on an escalator and we're going from slavery on up to equality. No bumps in the road, no turns. It's not a circuitous route. It's a straight path, you know, from the shame and horrors of enslavement and Jim Crow and all of that, straight towards equality. Like it ascends from the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, right past segregation and Jim Crow, right to the victories of the Civil Rights Movement, and then it drops us off for a minute in 2008 for Barack Obama's election, and then it keeps on going to this post-racial society that we're supposed to live in now. And so it's this false mythological redemptive narrative that smooths over the past, okay? But it also smooths over what's happening right now in the present. And it smooths over what's to come, holding out for this promise of what they want you to think is this almost predestined, naturally occurring future that will be just, equal, altruistic, and egalitarian. And we're on our way there right now because America is inherently good. I suggest to you that that's hogwash. If you believe that, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray. Okay? Thinking this way won't make the future any better. Thinking this way doesn't make the present any better. Thinking this way doesn't make the past any less horrible than it was. This mythology of racial progress distorts our perceptions of reality. And most Americans don't live in reality. Okay? They live in this mythological place. They live in Pleasantville. This place that most of us don't recognize. The description that the Tim Scotts and the Ron DeSantis and others of the world give of America is an America we don't recognize. Okay? Seeing progress as natural and inevitable is a distortion of reality. It is never natural. It's man's nature, particularly those who have proven it, not to be that way, to try to lord over others, to try to look out for their own well-being. Those who have created a structure in this nation that benefits them are not going to just let that structure be destroyed. They're going to hold on to it. They're going to sustain it. Okay? They're going to bend over backwards to make sure it stays in place. All right? Now, wait, Brother Swan. Are you trying to say that the conditions for Black life in America haven't gotten better over time? No, that's not what I'm saying. Material standards in many ways have improved. There have been some essential civil rights that have advanced. Albeit they've advanced through unevenly, episodically, and contentious effort. It's not like it happened naturally. It's not like America just said, you know what, we're going to stop and give you these rights. It was contentious efforts that brought that about. So yeah, there has been some level of progress and some level of material standards that have improved, but don't get it twisted. Many areas have never seen any progress. And some areas that saw progress saw the progress reversed. I mentioned the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You all do know that in 2013, the Supreme Court basically gutted the Voting Rights Act. That the government cannot enforce, because of that Supreme Court ruling in 2013, the government cannot enforce the Voting Rights Act. So there's an example of alleged progress that has been reversed. And we still talk about the Voting Rights Act as if it's in effect. When we talk about the civil rights gains and MLK and this and that, we talk about the passing of the Voting Rights Act as if they didn't gut it in 2013. So like I said, many areas there's been no progress. And in some areas where there was progress, they've reversed that progress. This mythology of racial progress rings hollow when it comes to the racial gaps in education, when it comes to basic health outcomes, the disparity in health status indicators among Black people, when it comes to voting rights. Once again, Voting Rights Act reversed. Draconian voting laws being passed all over the nation to make it harder for Black people to vote. That's progress? Come on now. When it comes to criminal justice, where's the progress at? We're still the ones being mass incarcerated. We're still the ones most likely to be racially profiled and to be imprisoned and to get harsher sentences. Tell me, where has the progress been in the criminal justice system or personal wealth? Let's talk about the wealth gap. Where has the progress been in that area? See, history is not a ratchet that turns only in one direction. It was the late MLK who said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Maybe it will in the end. But in our actual lifetime, we see backward steps and we see tragic detours on this bending towards justice. And so the protests that happened during George Floyd and subsequent times focused on fundamental questions of police violence and civil rights. But there's so many other areas that we need to talk about in terms of how far Black people have or have not come in America. And it's not about an individual advancement, because that's what they often will try to point you to. Bob Johnson's a billionaire. Oprah's a billionaire. Jay-Z's a billionaire. You know, Michael Jordan. They'll point you to gains that were made by individuals as if that is representative to a progressive and systemic gain by the entire Black population. And they only do that with Black folks. Nobody ever points to individual white achievement as an indicator of the entire white society. They don't do that for Asian Americans. They don't do that for Latinos. They only do it for Black people. Look, y'all got LeBron. Y'all had Barack. So that means everything in Black America is okay. So it's all right. But it's not. It's not. It's not. Inequality is yet alive and well. Very alive. Very well. Existing in America. But for whatever reason, you know, Americans are determined to believe in this Black progress, whether it's happening or not. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's true. It just matters that we believe it's true. And we're going to gaslight you until you believe it's true. Until you believe that every so-called failure or every negative indicator for Black people is the fault of Black people and has nothing to do with the realities in America. That all of that ended, like at some point in time, systemic racism disappeared. And you can't blame white supremacy, systemic racism, none of that. None of that. Y'all problem is y'all problem, and it's your own fault. Period. You're not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps like you ought to. You know, you're being lazy. You all are out there doing things to yourself. And it's hard to break this mentality among the dominant white society. And then, of course, they have their sycophantic Black folks who parrot this narrative and repeat this foolishness that they then point to. And they tell me, Brother Swan, you ought to listen to Larry Elder. You ought to follow Candace Owens. You ought to listen to Tim Scott. Or you ought to read up on Thomas Sowell. Any black person that's willing to buck dance and play step and fetch it and act like their gaslighting is actually true, that's who they want us to listen to. Because the narratives we tell about ourselves help us to organize how we interpret events as they unfold and respond to them. So if they can convince us of this narrative that systemic racism doesn't exist, then when we look at what's happening, when we look at the extrajudicial murder of black people on the streets, we'll look at it through their lens, that this had nothing to do with the race of the innocent, unarmed person that got killed. He or she must have done something. The police had to have been justified, because if we tell ourselves a narrative that everything is equal, then everything that happens will be defined by that narrative, and how we respond will be defined. And they don't want our response to be based on the reality of an America that is still inherently racist at its core. They want us to respond based on a narrative that America is inherently good. So we won't take to the streets and protest. We won't make them feel uncomfortable by talking about racism. We won't trigger the fragility. See, narratives are part of our mental architecture. Okay? They're and we have generational fallacies. We make up things based on this narrative of America being altruistic and egalitarian. And so you even have people who will acknowledge the reality of racism, but then they'll see salvation in the presence of white folks somehow changing their ways. But generational change is not so simple. And as we find out, white supremacy and systemic racism is not dying with younger generations. It's being passed on. Why do you think you have so many TikTok and Instagram videos of young white folks, teenagers, 13, 14, 15 years old, doing all kinds of racist stuff? If y'all think racism died out with Generation X, that's another myth that you're believing. That is another myth that you are believing. Because on any given day, you can find 10, 12, 14-year-old white kids boldly on the internet making racist jokes, doing racist stuff, all kinds of stuff that they learned from their parents who are in their 30s, who they learned from their parents who are in their 50s. And this stuff just gets passed down from generation to generation. You've got a surging mass of young people that are learning the behaviors of their parents. As much as we'd like to think we've got a mass of enlightened younger people who are going to be the salvation of this nation as the older generation dies off. But let's be real. Young people's racial attitudes are more like their parents than we realize. It and so thinking that it's going to die with younger generations is a part of the mythology of racial progress. And this kind of thinking is corrosive in many ways because it provides a reason to blame the victim. Because if we're converging on equality, then those who are left behind, they just must not be trying hard enough. They must just, like I said, must not be pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. So it provides a reason to blame the victim, and it also diffuses moral responsibility. You know, if we're already on our way to progress, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything to actively and significantly reform the American system. It's all right just like it is. Just like it is. Because if we're converging on this equality anyway, we don't need no laws. We don't need no other measures to promote it. We don't need to actively work on dismantling systemic racism or addressing white supremacy. We don't need to be teaching no history about American racism in our schools. We just need to remain on cruise control up the escalator towards equality. So we live in a mythological America. And we encounter this everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. Matter of fact, when I talked about the 2013 ruling of the Supreme Court, it was the mythology of racial progress that was the catalyst for the majority opinion that was written by Chief Justice John Roberts in that case, Shelby County versus Holder. That decision striking down the key section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. And Roberts wrote something about how, and I'm paraphrasing, you get the exact quote yourself, but he said that 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, he's writing this in 2013. Voting Rights Act was 1965. He says 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, things have changed dramatically. This is in the opinion. Get the opinion and read it. And then he says there's no doubt that the improvements, okay, are because of the Voting Rights Act. That the act has proved successful at redressing the racial discrimination and integrating Black people into the voting process. Basically, in their majority opinion, they said, well, the Voting Rights Act did what it's supposed to do. Everything's equal now, and ain't no need to keep it in place. That's the myth of racial progress. So we can get rid of these laws that were passed to redress the problem, because the problem is now solved. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. I want to talk about the young generation of today, because I have 3 daughters. You know, they're teenagers, and you know they're high school teenagers. You know, and the music Black culture dominates. You know, the music industry with the kids. You know, might get in a car, we go for a ride, they want to listen to the music. I can't listen to it. Your son plays really good music. Your son plays, you know, he's got talent. The filth that's on the radio, I can't even listen to it.
Now, you're not going to blame all Black people for the filth on the radio, are you? You ain't going to do that.
Well, I'm not. But I mean, I'm like, no, but I mean, it's disgusting. And I'm shocked to hear some of the stuff that in these. I mean, yeah, look, I'm old like you know.
Hold up, bro. Hold up. Watch your tone now. Old like you.
But I'm not get off your lawn type. You know what I mean? I don't mind, but I can't listen. I can't listen to that stuff. I guess the point I'm trying to make is
Now let me try to make a swift throw a caveat in here on what you're saying. And I agree. There's a lot of music that is problematic. However, I submit that the mentality and the viewpoints of young people, particularly when it comes to racism in America, is more so shaped by their upbringing, the influences in their lives, i.e. their parents and grandparents and folk around them, than it is by the music that they listen to. I think when you find a young person who has some very depraved viewpoints, those viewpoints are more likely than not shaped by their upbringing and influence than it is off of whatever they're listening to on the radio.
Yeah, I know, but it's different than it was when we were kids. Well, I went to Van Sickle. One day we invited a couple black kids into the neighborhood, East Springfield, to play basketball, friends of ours from Van Sickle. Well, the neighborhood was outraged by it. How dare you bring those black kids into the neighborhood?
I went to Van Sickle, by the way.
Yeah, that doesn't I'm just saying, that really doesn't happen today. I mean, the kids today and like...
it happens. It does happen. It does happen. You still get white folks who get outraged that you bought these N-words around.
But not like it did back then. It is changing. It's not 100%. You're always going to have that fringe part of society. It's not like it was in the 70s or even the 80s. It's better now. It's much better now. You know, my kids go to Belchertown. It's like 98% white. But those.
And do you know that there's still black people who will not roll through Belchertown at night because of that?
I'm sure, just like a lot of white kids aren't gonna go to black communities too, because there's just that there's that natural tendency to be afraid of what's not comfortable to them, right?
Well, not comfortable, but also about the realities of what happens to people like us when we're in neighborhoods like that. I think there's a proven history of that, and not so much with white folks. White folks don't really have a history of getting accosted in black neighborhoods, but black folks certainly, they had sundown towns in this doggone nation. It was like, look, Negro, after dark, you better be gone. And we still feel that way about certain parts of this area. There are black people who won't go through East Longmeadow, Belchertown, Ware, a number of cities after dark, because they are literally afraid that they may be racially profiled.
I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying it's probably better than it used to be, and hopefully it continues to get better. That's my point. You know, the other thing but there's this divide now. You know what I mean? Because here's what happens when you get everything gets categorized by race. Okay, these companies now, they're falling over themselves to hire black people, falling over them. So whether or not they're,
Wait, hold. They're falling over themselves to hire unqualified black people.
I'm saying no, to diversify their companies.
Well, they ought to be diversified. They ought to look more like America. I'd push back against.
All my point is, it needs to be done on merit. If you can do the job, do the job.
Oh well, no, hold on. Let me push back now. Of course, we think people ought to be hired based upon qualifications and merit. But do you know how long black people who had merit were held back from opportunities because of their race? Do you know how many black people who were more qualified than the white folks who got the job were pushed away because of race? So what I'm saying is this is white folks have to get out of this mentality that if a black person got the job, it was based on some DEI policy or some affirmative action policy, and they're really not qualified for the job, and they didn't get it on merit, to go to that automatic assumption when we know for many years white folks got jobs because they were white and not necessarily based on merit.
Yeah, but you're not going to make things better if you overreach in the other direction.
Oh, I get it. So we ain't gonna make things better if we go get black people and give them jobs. Let's just continue doing it the way we've been doing it, making sure white folks get the jobs, whether they're qualified or not.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, what you saying then?
What I'm simply saying is it doesn't help hiring people that aren't qualified, whether they're white or black. People are smart enough to know in companies or wherever you work, whether if somebody's qualified to do the job. You can't overreach in the other direction and then expect that the relationship between races are going to get better.
Well, let me give you the ultimate.
An element of animosity.
Let me give you the ultimate overreach, and I got to take some more calls. The ultimate overreach was when y'all hired Donald Trump as president, the most unqualified person ever to hold the highest office in the nation. So when we talk about not being qualified for stuff, come on, man. From president on down, white folks have consistently got jobs and opportunities and stuff that they ain't qualified. Half the white folks in Congress ain't qualified to be there. So yeah, that's a hard sell when we start talking about based on merit, when we've got a whole 400-year history of y'all getting stuff that ain't had nothing to do with merit. Untouchable J, you're in the space.
Bishop, good morning, brother.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was just going to listen in today. I said, just objectively listen today, but that gentleman.
You there, Jay?
You got my blood. I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, part of me thinks that we need a little more separatism because of the opinions of gentlemen like that. Still under a racist and white supremacist system, they pretend and gaslight as if nothing has changed. It bewilders me. He was wrong on 1,000 points. From nepotism, the stuff that still goes on, especially to your point about politics. America showed their true colors, voted in Donald Trump, right? And then act like they forgot what happened. And I'll just land there. I know we got, you're short on time, brother, but it's callers like that. He literally proved that the myth of black progress is still there and we still have white supremacy.
Yes, sir.
God bless, brother.
All right. Yeah. You can't win that one. You can't win that one. Oh, the only Mel Cruz. Holla at
Hey,
me.
good morning. Hey, good morning, Bishop. Looking good as always.
Good morning.
That caller, I just like the other guy, I was just going to listen. But that caller, he's out of pocket. The numbers are out as it relates to DEI, and white people have taken over DEI.
Thank you.
And so, and so it's not a surprise that white people don't understand DEI because they're the ones teaching it to each other, and they refuse to hear what DEI actually means. They can't even agree on what diversity, equity, and inclusion even means.
I give you an example. I give you an example. They were doing something at Springfield College, which is right down the street from where my church is. My wife actually used to work there, and their idea of diversifying their workforce was not necessarily bringing black people in. It became about bringing people in who had different sexual orientations. So although we're hiring other white people because this white person is gay and this one is bi and this one is trans, we're diversifying the workforce. And a lot of times they will put an entire white workforce in front of you and tell you it's diverse because of all of these other reasons and still exclude black people from it.
And still unable to talk about the issues. That's what makes it the worst. Because I could almost get with them if it's just a white company and everybody's white, so everything's right. But when you have a diverse group of people and you're unable to discuss perspectives from their position, then it's a big problem. So I'm just glad you hold these spaces, and thanks for your time, Bishop. Appreciate you a lot.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Let me see. Cool H Town. H Town girl. I told y'all H Town always be representing.
Hi, good morning, family. Good morning, Bishop. Thanks for holding this space.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's off to a great start to their Monday. So, yes, that caller that just spoke, and I apologize, I couldn't see who it is. I don't even know if he's still in the room. But one thing that I take issue with is these very broad, yes, there's lots of topics that, because of time constraints, we can only talk in broad terms. However, what I always challenge, folks like the previous caller who, wants to fall back on, diversity, we got to find qualified blacks. And so on and so not with all that vague broad terms. What I can tell you very quickly, my personal experience at 50 years of age, 30 years I've spent in corporate America. My clients are literally from California to New York and everywhere in between. And I say that because I literally have a broad national scope. And to this day, 99% of all executive teams. So for instance, my clients are owners and operators and developers of big, huge commercial assets, right? Multifamily and so on and so forth. And 99% of all executive team members, meaning from CEOs, owners, presidents, VPs, regionals, and districts, and on down the board, are white. Period. Part of my role is recruiting and onboarding, right? When they're building new construction and so on and so forth and building their teams. And I bring qualified to them, pick apart and 86 those resumes and, not to mention the nepotism and all that other stuff that comes into play.
Yeah.
It's facts and figures. When I go into boardrooms, it is very rare. When I say very rare, let me get specific. Maybe out of the entire year, I might run into, and I'm talking about out of hundreds and hundreds of meetings and hundreds of clients nationwide, I'm lucky if I run into 10 blacks in that entire year that sit at the executive table.
But they want us to think that all this progress is being made.
And that's 2023. Yeah. That's not, you know what I mean? I'm not even talking about for my whole 30-year career. That's 2023.
Yeah.
So I hate hearing when folks want to just speak in broad terms and this, that, and the other. No, do facts and figures. You know what I mean? At your company, at whatever. You give me a number. They are constantly looked over for promotion.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, sis. Yeah, y'all. Yeah, I'm out of time. Unfortunately, I gotta go. Just when we getting hot up in here. But listen, I want to encourage you all again to come out to the Lift Every Voice lecture series. The last one is happening on April 12th. We had Dr. J. Keith Motley. We had Dr. Wes Bellamy. We had Teslin Figaro. And Vicki Irvin is going to close us out on April 12th. And matter of fact, since that time, the University of Massachusetts, Boston is breaking ground for its first on-campus dormitory. And it's going to be named after Dr. Motley, who was with us in February. So congratulations out to my frat brother, Dr. J. Keith Motley, on that wonderful accomplishment. Listen, I'm going to get out your way. James Lewis is in the studio. He's coming up next with mid-morning jazz and great black music and all that good stuff that y'all need to stay tuned and listen to here in the P Valley, not that one from TV, the Pioneer Valley. Until the next time, check us out at Spring of Hope Church, 35 Alden Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. Sundays at 11 a.m., Wednesdays 7:30 p.m. Bible study. But we're in Lenten season, so we're going to the Pastor's Council at 7 p.m. at Mount Zion Baptist Church on Oak Street this Wednesday. I'm out of here, y'all. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Deuces.